gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Explore Your Expert Business Show. Today, I'm here with the one and only Suze Maclaine Pont.
Hey,
And
Simone.
we are talking, hey Suze, we are talking today about money personalities. Now, I've taken a lot of different personality tests. I think they're brilliant to give you an idea of where you thrive and where are your parts of improvement, what you need to have around you to perform at best. So I really like them. And I never, though, took one around money. And you came up with this incredible concept about the 6 money personalities, which we are going to talk about in a moment and see what these different personalities are. But before we get started, what got you into the creation of this work and working with money and working with personalities?
Wow. Well, actually, what got me into this is that I got stuck with money a few years ago myself pretty badly. I originally I'm a shipbuilder, and I was an engineer, and I was working in huge, large-scale innovation projects as an independent consultant. And I set up my business, and somehow in the first 5 years of my business, I quadrupled my revenue. And I was just playing around, and I was at sea 4 months of the year. And I thought, all this crap around business being so hard, I don't get it. It's easy. That was my assumption until I got pregnant. And that was quite unexpected, because I thought I was infertile. So all of a sudden I appeared not to be, which was good news. But then the father of my child left me 8 weeks into that pregnancy. So all of a sudden I was a single mom, business owner, and I did not want my child to have more than 3 days daycare a week. And then I was confronted with that. The way my business was set up required me to be present 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, 3 months in a row. And then I had 2 months free. And that does not work with a baby. So all of a sudden I was, the way my business was set up allowed me a lot of freedom on my own, but it didn't anymore. And then everyone around me said, well, just find a job, just compromise for a little while. It's only for a few years. And I thought, well, it's 18 years. It's not a few years, it's 18 years. And I was not prepared to make that compromise. And I did not have any answers, but I knew one thing, and that was that this was not how the universe planned this for me. I thought there has to be a different way. There's just something I am not able to see right now. There is some thing here that I am not seeing straight. So I compromised a lot for the first years. When Benjamin was 8 weeks old, I was already working 40 hours a week again, and he was crying 5 hours a day, and it was a hell of a time. And I thought, the minute I get how this actually works, I'm going to teach everybody. So it took me about 6 years to really find out what was going on. In those 6 years, I racked up 50,000 euros of debt. And nobody knew about that. I was really ashamed about it. I did not even tell my husband. I found Jacco, my husband, well, you know him, in the beginning of Benjamin's life. So I was so happy that he joined us and that he took care of my son and of me, that all of a sudden I did not want to tell him about my faults, about my failures. So I had a huge amount of debt. He didn't know about it until the bank called us that they were going to sell the house. And that was something that I had to tell him, of course. We did not end up selling it, but I thought, there is something wrong with me. It's not something wrong with my business, because I was breadwinner. I was doing actually a pretty good job revenue-wise. And I understood that somehow there has to be something wrong with me, which was actually good news. So I thought, if making money is not that difficult, but somehow I end up in this downward spiral all of a sudden, then what is wrong with me? Because if it's something wrong with me, I probably can fix it too. And that is where I started. I was already interested in and studying everything I could about people and about psychological imprints that we have. And I'm also a trauma therapist. And that is where I thought, so what wounds do we have that we have programmed in our system really early on in life, somewhere between being a baby and your seventh, that just keep on running until you have them consciously.
Yep.
So that is where I thought, if we can, and you can do this around relationships, around everything, but I thought, what's the most painful thing? Well, in my life, money was the most painful thing. So let's dive into the real pain. Let's see, because money can feel like, yeah, but that just happens. I have no control over it. We can feel really powerless over money, or we can really feel, especially as business owners, we can feel like, but I'm good enough.
Yeah.
And you are good enough. There's just some program in you that's running that you're not aware of.
And so now you managed then from that moment to like go debt free, turn your life around, and turn your business completely around. And so that's where we comes in where the money personalities. So what I would love now to ask you is, so what are these different money personalities, if you can walk through them one by one and give me, because I've seen your report, and of course in this interview we can't give like a 30-page report for every
Not gonna happen.
No, that's not gonna happen. And on this interview, but guys, there is a link in the show notes, so then at any point you can take the money personality quiz. Just scroll down or check the post on Facebook. There is a link, so then you can check it out and take your quiz to see what your money personality is. Get a fantastic 30 pages report. I got it too. Is solid work, and it's terrifying. I don't know if it's even a word, accurate. so let's start with the different categories and some qualities about them.
Yeah, so basically it's 6 types. And what I did is I went through the stages of early childhood. So when a baby comes into the world, and what developmental stages does he go through, and what can go wrong in those stages. And that is where the types come from. So when you, and of course, all these developmental stages, something goes wrong. We're more likely than not, you're probably wounded in 2 or 3 rather than just 1. But in our childhood, things went wrong just because our parents are not perfect, and they shouldn't be, because we need parents who screw certain things up, otherwise we don't learn anything. So certain things have to go wrong in order for us to learn, but if they go too wrong, or there are certain things that really damage you in a certain way, then you can really get stuck in a certain area. So there is basically 6 developmental stages, and the first one is coming in, even actually just living in your body. So once right after birth, what happens is the child all of a sudden has to be on its own, and it has to be on this earth, and it comes to this planet. So this soul has to come from up wherever into a human body. And if for some reason or other, the child is left alone too much, and it can have so many reasons. Maybe your mom got sick, maybe there were really severe issues in her life, or maybe she was dealing with stuff that she couldn't deal with, or maybe she was in huge trauma. So it doesn't even have to be anybody's fault. Or maybe you were actually saved in one of those, I don't know the English word, a couveuse. Is that an English word? Anyway,
no, it is.
No,
You're
it's
asking
not.
in Italian now.
That doesn't help, right? Some kids, right after birth, they're taken away from their mom, and actually their life is saved. But the baby
like
doesn't.
Putting it in an incubator.
Incubator. That
one.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
got it.
And those things actually are lifesavers. So I'm not even saying that anybody did anything wrong on purpose. It's just that a child needs its mother close to it. And if it didn't have that well enough, then you develop what I call the rabbit personality. And the rabbit is a little bit afraid, anxious, doesn't really want to be touched. It's kind of jumpy and kind of up there, still really connected with something way bigger than life.
Yeah.
but afraid to make a connection, and afraid that if it will make a connection, it will die. And rabbits are usually very spiritual. They have a really strong connection with a huge wisdom. They oversee things, but they have a hard time connecting with people. They have a hard time actually bringing their gift into the world. So when it comes to money, these are typically the people who say, let's just get rid of the whole system. Money is the root of all evil. Let's just not do that. Let's just stay up here and dream and think about things. And they have a really huge sense of creativity, of wisdom, except we're not getting it. They're really, really known for being frugal, for not needing anything, for not taking up space, for not living on this planet. And there's something good about it. And they have a lot of things that we should be getting, but if they don't want to get their hands dirty, or how do you say that, to actually play the game here,
there is nothing we can do.
No, exactly. And rabbits usually don't even want to think about money. If a rabbit takes this quiz, I applaud you, because that means that you're actually aware of that there's something you want to change. Life seems harsh for them. So that's the rabbit. Then if that stage of development goes well, then what happens is that the child starts to fulfill its needs, right? So in the first few months after birth, it knows, okay, I'm safe, I can be here, it's okay to actually live and breathe. And then it comes into a place where it feels its body, and it starts to feel needs like being fed, needs like being cuddled, and warmth, and physical proximity. And then this is a really, really difficult area, because if those needs are not met, the child will feel scarcity. So then we develop the dog personality, and the dogs, if you look at it money-wise, these are typical people who take care of other people, and they are really sensitive to people's needs, and they're really sensitive to giving, except they want something back. So there's a kind of they don't know how to ask for help. They just give everything, but it's from a place of scarcity. So when it comes to money, they spend it, but kind of like, hey, I can spend, so you see, there's enough. Except if you always spend it, then there's never enough.
There is never enough.
So there's this huge gap inside them of never enoughness. Of somehow I can just never work it out, and whatever I do, it's never enough. It also feels that whatever they get from other people or get back from other people, it's never enough. And they can be resentful and kind of like, well, they don't feel that there is ever enough. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking about this kind of people that, because when you're going through this journey and through the different personalities, I'm thinking about my own personal journey with money. And, I started when I was 22 as an activist, and I was one of the people setting up the tents in front of St. Paul Cathedral for the Occupy London movement. So I was there protesting against the financial system. This all needs to collapse. This is, so I was like, pure rabbit there.
Yes, absolutely.
and then I'm thinking about the dog personality, where I'm thinking the moments where I was spending, or even like those people that they do, but they always expect something back.
Exactly. Never
and they don't communicate, and it's not clear that they were expecting something back.
Exactly.
It's like, I didn't know you were expecting something back. Why you're getting angry with me? You gave me all this and more and more and more.
Exactly.
So I can definitely relate with that. Yes. So then we have the third type.
What's the third type? Is the tiger or the cat.
The tiger.
And that is right after you know that your needs are met and you know there's enough, a child starts to figure out that they're independent, that they're not the same person as their mom or their dad, and that they have 2 feet and that they can actually walk on them. So they start to slowly experiment with being apart and being independent from their mom, but they also really need approval. And somehow they have this, I'm independent, I can do everything. But then when your parents are like, oh, you're independent right now, well, just go then. So they're kind of pushed out where they really did need to be the small person as well. So they have this push-pull mechanism, kind of like, I can do everything by myself, except because that's somehow they feel like I'm better off alone. But they also really want to belong to a group. But when they're in a group, they kind of blend in and feel everybody and feel everyone, and they don't feel their own self anymore. So it's either they're in the group and they don't know who they are, or they're outside of the group and they don't make a connection. So they can look really independent, and they can look like they have everything together, and people wonder, well, you can do everything by yourself. You don't need me. And then they don't really know how to really connect to a group. Do you get what I mean?
I totally get what I mean. And so how does this relate with money?
They avoid it. They they kind of avoid a connection, and they avoid money. They have huge stacks of unopened mail and bills, and they're like, it'll work itself out somehow. I don't really know how this all works. So they somehow they're like, they just avoid everything. They avoid connections, and they avoid looking at their money. So they are capable, but they don't really know how to make a connection with their capability and their capacity. Yeah. So these are the people who shy away from actually making a budget, from understanding what their numbers mean. These are people who have late fees, who kind of, well, I don't know if I can afford it, but let's just do it.
Yeah, let's buy it, and then something will magically happen that will sort my financial stuff out. Or
Exactly.
So they are aware that there is a problem, but they don't want to face it. They are aware about, hey, this is not right, but they're not doing anything to change it.
Exactly. Because if they would have to change it, they would have to face their own independence, and they don't really feel that independence. They have it, they just don't really feel it. Because they feel, if I stand on my actual 2 feet, I'm all alone and nobody will ever help me again. So there's this kind of but if I really take up that responsibility, I really don't think I can do it, because then nobody will love me anymore. So there is this kind of if I am a little bit helpless, and I a little bit show that I don't really have my act together, then at least there will be somebody looking out for me.
Some people will have compassion, or they will they get pity on me, and then they will be, I can still get the help that I need, and so I don't have to rely totally on myself.
Exactly. And asking for help is difficult.
Oh, interesting. Okay, all right. Cats out there, if you're listening, you know who you are. You're like, yeah, you can say, okay. And the thing that this is really important, before we move on with the other archetypes and personality and money personality types. This is important for you to have an awareness about where you are and how you are more naturally as a person. And so in this way, it's not about judging yourself or feeling bad about yourself, but it's about understanding better yourself. So then you can get what you want in life. So you can get the money that you want in life. You can face those challenges and feel completely fulfilled and not applying someone else's paradigm into your own life.
Exactly. And it's actually very easy to take care of these patterns. You just need to know you have them.
So we have the rabbit, we have the dog, we have the cat. Who do we have next?
The rooster.
The rooster.
Yes. Exactly. And rooster is exactly like the animal. They they protect, and they're there for their hen, and they take care of everybody, except they scare other people also a little bit. So they're a little bit intimidating. They're all about power and control and controlling. Now that sounds not so nice. So some roosters are actually roosters, but not wanting to be roosters. So they're like, no, I'm not intimidating. I don't manipulate. I don't scare off people. Because, for instance, I have that, and my dad was a rooster, and he manipulated a lot, and he was the really charming guy, but somehow you could never get out of his grip. And that was not really nice in my childhood. So I'm like, I'm not like my dad, right? We all know that. But what we forget is that there's something really, really great about these people. They're also leaders. They're not afraid. They take action. They come into a room and they start doing, and they take control. And that's a good thing. And that is what people need, specifically in business owners. If you're a business owner, you need a little bit of that rooster power, except the rooster needs to learn that they're also allowed to be vulnerable and to connect with people, and that they're actually wanted. Because how this character developed is that in early childhood, there is a certain part when a kid is 4 years old or something like that, somewhere between 2 and 4, that they've learned to speak, to walk, to eat, to do everything, right? And then parents are like, okay, you don't need me anymore. And for some reason, that can have a lot of different reasons. For instance, my dad's parents, they survived the war. And after the war, they lost everything. So they didn't really know how to rebuild that. And they were afraid, and they were living in a house with other people, and they had huge traumas. So my dad somehow had to take care of things. So he had to take care of the finances when he was a kid. That's not his parents' fault. It's just how it happened.
It's the situation.
It's a situation. Yeah, and sometimes it can be something. I wouldn't blame your parents. It's just the situation in which you grew up that demanded too much of you at a too early age. If there's one thing my dad wanted, it is that I would be able to face life. He just forgot that it was only a kid. He thought, if you're not able and capable of making a budget when you're 7 years old, then you failed.
Like, give me a break. I'm 7 years old. I'll learn how to make a budget.
Exactly. So what I really like now is that now he looks at my kids and he says, maybe I overasked you. Maybe you were only a kid. But we want our kids to succeed in life. Sure. But if there was, or what also can happen is that one of your parents died too early when you were young. If one of your parents, for instance, I have a client, her father died when she was 5, and she had to be the man in the house. She had to take care of the situation. Her mother wasn't capable, was mourning all of her life. So those things happen. And what happens then is that a kid takes up too big a responsibility at a too early age and doesn't feel supported in their decisions. So they feel alone, and they feel like there's no room for vulnerability here. I mean, there's no room for vulnerability in life at all. If I don't do it, nobody will be there for me.
Yeah.
And what they typically do is take care of everybody around them.
Yeah, no, if I can definitely totally relate with that. I did the quiz, and I am a total rooster. Yes, I'm a total rooster, and living in a house where my father was an alcoholic, and my mom was doing her best to get everything together, not to make me and my brother feel the problem that was going on. And then my father leaving and me becoming like the man in the house, even if I was like 13, 14 at the time, then it had a huge impact, and it created in me the kind of personality of, I can handle it myself. I don't need you. I got it sorted. Don't worry. You guys live your life. And I need to keep this in check, because it's always running that pattern. Like even sometimes I have, even in my team, and someone does something that I don't like, my thought immediately is, I don't need you. I can do this
Exactly.
on my own. And I'm like, okay, just chill out. You really need them. You cannot do everything on your own. So, but that's the first thought that comes in. It's almost automatic. And as soon as I got the awareness of it, then things changed. Things
Yes.
changed for me. But it's something that I always need to keep in check. So when I was reading my report
Yes.
in the personality quiz, I was like, yeah, that's
That
true.
makes sense.
That's so me.
Yes.
Okay, so we have the rooster.
Yes.
Then what's next? What's the next personality?
Straight after that is the pig. And the
Pig.
pig
Oink
is,
oink. I'm gonna make sounds
yes.
for everyone. Sorry, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna make sound effect for everyone. So we have the
I want
pig.
to hear
Oink
your
oink.
rabbit sound as well. Oh yeah.
I don't know. Okay, let's go with the
Anyway,
pig. It's
yeah,
easier.
let's go with the pig first. Yeah. So the pig one is the personality type that is also giving, a little bit like the dog, except different because the pig doesn't do it because he doesn't know how his needs are met, but the pig gives and gives and gives because he doesn't feel worthy. So the pig is a developmental wound that happened in a later stage in your development.
Mm-hmm.
And the pig personality has been humiliated for who he is. And he just doesn't feel worthy. He doesn't feel capable. And he feels that he has to take the weight of the world on his shoulders. You can often even see it in their physical, in their physique. My husband is a pig and he actually walks a little bit like this. They do everything for everybody. They bring the gift of loyalty. They are the most loyal people. They will allow you to beat them and scorn them and humiliate them. They will stay forever. They just do everything because they don't feel worthy inside. When it comes to money, they're savers. They will not spend a dime on themselves. It's almost painful to do something for themselves, to enjoy life just because it needs to be enjoyed. They
Yeah.
want to save everybody else. And there's something beautiful in saving everybody else, except that times are changing. And I don't know if it ever was a good idea to save other people by neglecting yourself. But specifically now, if now more than ever, if you want to save the world, you have to show the world what is possible. You cannot just save the other people and say, oh, no, it's not about me. I'm just saving you, because people want the example more than the
Yeah.
results.
And so, what's the main difference between was that the dog, which was so it was the dog that was spending a lot, while the pig is a saver. So they're both a people pleaser, put others before themselves, but the dog would just spend to have a sense of worthiness, and is the pig that will not spend, it just save.
So the pig saves and is taking care of others to feel worthy, and the dog is taking care of others, hoping to get his own needs met.
I see. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
So in result, it's different, but it's a really different wound. But in result, it can look a little bit the same.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that. So that's, and then the last one, what's the last one?
The last one is the dragon. And
the
dragon. The dragon is the last one, because actually when a child is fully developed, it goes to school and it starts wanting to test what it's learned in school, and it wants to get approval. And it wants to be approved of who he is. And the dragon lives in a kind of you can actually notice dragons in a split second, because you can see it. Everything about the dragon looks perfect, except they don't know that. They feel like a failure inside. And no matter how many compliments you give them, they always feel like, oh, did I do that right? Oh, yeah. But what about this? And what about that? They will see every detail that's still not right. And they are so afraid of failing, and they've been severely punished for failing. So when it comes to money, they have everything together, but they will not spend it if they don't have a budget around it, or they didn't think about what the consequences will be, or they always need to have a kind of a perfect overview of the situation, which you will never have. Specifically as a business owner, sometimes you make mistakes, and dragons are so afraid of mistakes. They just want to understand it up front. And that's a huge thing. That's just almost impossible.
And how does this relate to money with dragons?
They're too careful. They avoid risks.
Right.
They don't just avoid risks. They feel anxious about risks that might happen 10 years down the road that were not. They have everything together, except when it comes to enjoying and just not thinking about it for a minute and relaxing and giving up a little bit of control and possibly risking some kind of failure.
Yeah.
That's huge.
That's huge for them.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So to wrap up, we have the rabbit. I don't know if that's the sound of a rabbit.
I think a rabbit is more like something like that.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I like that. Then we got the dog.
Yes.
Then we got the cat. We got the rooster. Then what's next? The pig. Oink oink. Yep. And then the dragon. Yeah. Okay, so now that you heard, guys, my incredibly like bad sound effect, that's why I'm not a voiceover artist. That's the beginning and the end of a promising career. And so make sure you get the quiz. Can you tell a bit more? We've got to wrap up now. So can you tell a bit more about how can people find out more and what you have created in the quiz of the 6 different money personalities?
Yeah, so the quiz, it's 14 questions. I think you could do it in 3 or 4 minutes. You can also think about every question for a day, but I would say do it in 3 minutes, a couple of minutes, take the 14 questions. What you will get is a video. And in the video, I will explain your money personality type. And if you leave your email, you will also get a 30-page, really intensive report where I explain everything about the details of these personalities and the 7-step process of how to break out of your pattern. And that is absolutely something you need. Also, I talk a lot about the strengths and what it means in business and what the world could actually get if you deal with this wound. And even if you know this already, take the quiz, because there's a lot of information that you probably don't know yet.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have been if it's one of the first personality tests you're gonna take, it's gonna be eye-opening. It's like, oh my god, Rita, you're reading my mind. And if you've been already taking a few different personality tests, you will find that there are going to be some confirmations of what you have explored before about yourself. If you have been around the path of self-discovery, you will find that there are going to be some confirmation in the way you act. And you will find as well that there are additional scenarios, because now this is linked to your money behavior, not just to your behavior, with your team or around yourself and the way you create happiness. If you're talking about, for example, the 16 personalities or other personality test. What I loved about this is just is literally money focus. So everything is put in the context of how you use money and how can you use it better. How can you know yourself better, so then you know what are your strengths and your weaknesses in the financial side. So then you don't fall into that trap that because of your condition you can go in. So make sure you get the quiz right now. What's the link?
The link is whatisyourmoneytype.com.
So whatisyourmoneytype.com. Whatisyourmoneytype.com. There you'll find a link as well in the show notes. You've just to scroll down and also click the link. It will be there. Suze, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Mind-blowing interview. Going through the quiz myself has been. I already knew what we were getting into, but I knew more just mainly about my personality. So it was great to learn about all the other personalities and how they interact with each other. So thank you very much, and guys, make sure you take the quiz
Thank you very
right
much,
now.
Simone. Yes.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.